bush in the middle of the night, and the askari was the driver.
Hey.
So he pulled in the middle of the night, stopped the car, and ran off into the bush. And then the ambush happened. 2 ambushes over 4 nights, 9 people dead. Lenny was with 3 of his women comrades. They found, I think, over 56 bullet wounds on him, camel's back, because Eugene de Kock could be, pointed at for this crime. After that, so this was 1988, right? Yeah. The Inquisition came before that. Questioned my parents about apartheid. Okay. Why we couldn't go and see our black friends. Why was I living and being educated only with people that look like me?
Okay.
So I became an activist quite young.
Because this is what they see. I'm African and you are not African. And no matter how much we try to be, coochie with each other, to be working.
So what am I then?
You're an Indian person.
But I wasn't born in India.
Of course. Your race is you're an Indian person. That's why I told you that. So if we were going to mark something, that's why now it's become important for demographics to say African when you tick. Because remember, black, you and I and a Chinese person are hijab.
Yes. The Hindu people came from South India.
Okay.
They were brought here by the British in 1860 in 3 shiploads. My mother's side came in the ship. My father's side, my father's father came much later from India.
Okay.
Okay, and then within the Indian community, you have different languages. I am Tamil speaking.
Tamil. So is Tamil... Okay, Mashia and the politically incorrect. We've got a very interesting lady who has enjoyed the multiracial and the regional stuff all over South Africa. She comes from a diverse background, and we're just gonna talk to her to understand her spirituality, her religion, her culture, her traditions, and of course her political thoughts in South Africa. Ponnie, how's it?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we are politically incorrect. So the thing that we discuss on the show is, we talk about things that involve someone's culture, heritage, and everything. So if you don't mind disclosing your yes, please let us know, because it will help us shape and put you into perspective. Where and when were you born?
Okay. I was born in the mid-1960s in Durban. And when people say, only realize later, or rather recently, that coming from the south side of a place is not a compliment. So I come from the south side of Durban, South Basin, one of the most popular polluted places in South Africa. And I come from a very marginalized, poor community of Merebank, which during apartheid, you had Umlazi, which is the African township. Then you had Merebank. Then the Brighton Beach was the colored area, and then you had Anstey's Beach. Okay. So I was like right in between those areas.
So mid 60s. So you were 18 in the 70s.
Yes.
And what was it like, and how free were you to go from colored areas? Did you know what was happening in the colored areas? Did you know what was happening in the African communities? The reason I'm asking you is a lot of white people would tell us that they were so shielded away from what was happening in the African communities that they did not know anything until June 1976. So I just want to give you an opportunity to explain.
Well, I'm very different. I was always a critical thinker.
Yeah.
So I always would question my parents about apartheid. Why we couldn't go and see our black friends. Why, why was I living and being educated only with people that look like me?
Okay.
So I became an activist quite young, but a community activist,
Okay.
where we went into the colored areas, into the African areas, to help people with food. So I don't fit that mold of being a conformist.
Okay.
I always wanted to step out and see what the real South Africa was like.
Yeah.
So when I saw the poverty around me, of course, like I would question things, right? So, and then I became president of my ex-student society of my high school. My high school, by the way, was originally a concentration camp during the Anglo-Boer War for white women and children.
Oh.
So in Merebank, it was one of the biggest concentration camp during the Anglo-Boer War for women and children. And the Indian women would actually pass food through the fences to the starving white people.
Oh, so the Indians were free.
The Indians were already, in 1860 we came right in 3 ships from southern part of India. Mm-hmm. So by 1901, when the Anglo-Boer was happening, the Indians were already settled there.
No, I mean when there was a concentration camp.
Yes. It was still kind of, it wasn't officially apartheid.
Yeah.
But it was an Indian area.
Yeah.
But it was a terrible area because it was a bog. Okay. A mere is, filled with water.
Okay, so it's wetland.
Wetland, basically. Oh. Yes. So that's where I come from, that political, from the ground up.
Okay.
And poverty staring in your face. And my teachers, I must say thank you to my teachers, because they also encouraged critical thinking. They subversively helped us politically, and then the UDM came along. We got on board. And then I went into university in 1984. And of course there, your eyes, political eyes was wide open. And I went to an Indian University of Durban, Westville. And my friends became very well known in South Africa. I was in a circle of friends. I don't know if you know Ponnie Naidu, Lenny Naidu, who was killed by Eugene de Kock. Oh. Yes. Now, my friends were like really on the forefront of the political movement.
Tell us more about them.
Okay, so Lenny Naidu was very active in Chatsworth. Okay. He stood up against the government. He joined MK. His best friend, I went out with him during college. Both of them joined MK, one of the few Indian guys that went into Angola. And so we were very politicized. And Lenny was, to this day, I do thank him for his guidance, because we used to call him the Indian Jesus. Mm-hmm. He had such a good heart. But when he saw the injustice of apartheid, he stood up and he had a following. And so when they went into hiding in 1986, my 21st birthday, by the way, was the last social event that Lenny and Richard, my ex-boyfriend, and the group of people that joined MK. It was because the police got on them. Oh. One of my friends was arrested the day before my 21st. Okay. I didn't even know. So, and then within weeks, they went into hiding and joined MK, and off they went.
So how did you go get them? When they were coming back?
Yeah, so what happened was they went to Swaziland, Zimbabwe, went to Angola, and then they were given assignments, right? Lenny was given an assignment. He went and did his underground work, and he was coming back into South Africa at a place called Piet Retief in Mpumalanga. There was an ambush in the middle of the night, and the Askari was the driver. Hey. So he pulled in the middle of the night, stopped the car, and ran off into the bush, and then the ambush happened. 2 ambushes over 4 nights, 9 people dead. Lenny was with 3 of his women comrades. They found, I think, over 56 bullet wounds on him. 56? I say they killed him 56 times. They planted a hand grenade in his hand, and one of the women survived. She came out of the car, they shot her point blank and planted a gun in her bag. And so they called them terrorists, right? 4 days later, there was another ambush. And then we only found out that Lenny had passed away middle of July. right? His mother couldn't identify his body.
It was in pieces. You can imagine 57 bullet holes.
I promise you, I believe that that is what broke the camel's back, because Eugene de Kock could be, what can I say, pointed at for this crime. After that, so this was 1988, right?
Yeah.
The Inquisition came before that. They didn't even wait for the TRC. They had the Inquisition, they found that he was guilty. And so I believe that that is what started the negotiations in South Africa for Mandela to be released. That's my heart, that's what I believe.
So this story places you on a person-to-person proximity of people who lost people during that difficult times of the late 80s.
Yes, it touched me personally.
So a lot of people are angry. I listened to Matthew Posa was speaking about how they came up with the idea that let us have a TRC, because he believed the TRC was made because the Boers who were in negotiations were afraid that if these people get into power and control judiciary and police force, they are going to prosecute our evil deeds. They're going to prosecute them.
Yes.
And once they do that, there's nothing for us. And then, when they reported, they said, okay, no, it's fine. Let it go. We're going to find a means of executing this. And this is where the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was born. And I'm going to want you to give me honest feelings of how do you think it went, and especially because you're a person who experienced this firsthand. So the TRC for you?
Oh, the TRC, I believe that was one of the most important things that we did in South Africa, to bring us all back on par and to share the stories behind the scenes. I mean, I've had a few friends who went in front of the TRC, and the stories that they told were just, I mean, it was eye-opening.
So you being to the you mourned friends, and the TRC came. When you were listening to the TRC, if you remember, did you feel that people were honestly doing it, or it was just a check exercise, and there are people who did not go to the TRC and still they were forgiven, they were not prosecuted? Because the idea of the TRC is to say, go there, plead you were not even pleading yourself, you were requesting for forgiveness, because those things were somewhat war crimes. Plead your forgiveness and the community will forgive you on both sides. The Africans, of course, and the whites. And of course the Indians and colors are caught in between of a big storm between the Africans and the whites.
And sometimes we were used as a pawn,
of course,
right? As a buffer.
Of course.
And that instigated, it was like a third force. So I think the third force has been here for a long time. The third force instigated conflict, for example, between the Indians in Durban and the Zulu people, right?
Yes. Because and afterwards, I want us to talk about Phoenix.
Yes.
The unfortunate Phoenix massacre when we're done. So
So coming back to the TRC, I think, look, there are many perspectives, but personally, I don't believe that Bishop Tutu would have gotten onto something that was not in his heart, rang the truth right, because he stood up for the truth. I think it was a difficult time, because to look at somebody in, whether it was a person who caused the crime or the victim, to look in their eyes and to say, I forgive you, is one of the toughest things to do. Even on a personal basis, it's very difficult to forgive somebody. So I think it was a healing process for South Africa. Maybe there's still issues that we need to go back and look at. But I think maybe on the one hand, the TRC could have been longer. There are a lot of stories that were not heard. And maybe there should have been a standard to say, if you did the following crimes and you didn't meet these criteria, then maybe you don't need to have some jail time or whatever the consequences were. Yeah. But I think in general, it was a very healing process in South Africa, and I think it made all the difference in where we are now. Mm-hmm. If you look at a place like America, where I also lived for about 11 years, they're still reeling from slavery 160 years later. They have not gone through that healing process. Right? We have. And I think that is what has made a big difference in our lives.
So in the US, you lived where, in the South?
In the South, in North Carolina, which was like the heart of slavery, you can still see the sadness there when you travel.
On a general, general perspective, for people from there, when they immediately look at you, were they thinking you are an original American and an Apache, or
Or
yes,
Native
how did they
American.
treat you as a native? So would they confuse you as a native? What was it like? Because
Okay.
once that is done, I want to understand how was the treatment.
Okay, so first of all, they didn't expect me to be Indian.
Yes.
They either expected me white or African.
Okay.
So that kind of shocked them first.
Okay.
Secondly, the most discrimination I ever got was from Indians from India.
You're kidding me.
And African American women, I'm sorry to say. People who look close to me, because my accent was different,
Yes.
because I looked different,
Yes.
I got discrimination.
So
And I was married to an Afrikaans guy before.
Yeah.
So being in a mixed couple relationship also
yeah.
was a cause for, for other people.
So were you with your husband in Carolina?
America? Yes,
Okay.
my ex-husband, yes.
So I just want to understand, from the Indian community, what was it that they put them off about you? Was it because you're in an interracial relationship?
We're coming from South Africa. People who come from so-called motherland countries
Yes.
look at people who are, the migrants and say, hey, you've been watered down. Surely you've got African in you. You're not the same as us.
Oh, now I understand.
You see.
So they come from motherland India.
So I'm not a true Indian,
Indian.
per se, but I'm proud to be African, I will tell you that. I'm very
Yes.
proud to have been born here, because my life would have been different if I was born in India.
Okay.
I don't think being a non-conformist would have helped either.
Okay. And what surname were you using?
I was using vessels there,
Okay.
and then after I got divorced, I went back to Moodley.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking you is, did they see you as someone who's foreign or someone who's indigenous? I'm talking to an untrained eye. Yeah.
So you see, when I was married, I was born as a Hindu, right?
Yes.
And I used to wear my red dot. So Indians from
Oh.
India knew I was Indian.
Because of the red dot.
Yes, but my
Oh.
darkest
Yes.
color put me in South Indian box.
Yes.
Right? So immediately they will kind of,
Okay.
tick off boxes to say she's this, and this. But when I opened my mouth they couldn't figure me out.
Okay.
Because I was a modern Indian.
Yes.
I dressed differently. I spoke different. I ate different. So it was confusing to them.
So the reason I'm asking you is, the Indians who they met you in America,
Yeah.
they would immediately class you because of their
the caste
inbred
system.
caste system. So their caste system immediately grouped you even before they spoke to you.
So basically, people make you politically incorrect.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you that line. You're
Yes.
not necessarily politically incorrect.
Yes.
But people make you politically incorrect because according to their mentality, what you are doesn't fit their list of criteria, right? So you must be something that's a wayward or out. I've always been what we call an outlier. I don't know if you read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. An outlier is a person that doesn't fulfill the norm.
You're outside the normal
outside.
box. Yeah.
I'm outside, and I love to be there.
Yeah.
Because I think differently. I don't conform to even my own community, right? If I'm in Durban and I'm in my own community, I actually feel out of place.
Coming from Durban and married to an Afrikaner, it's an extreme sport in itself.
Yes. And all my friends are diverse.
Yeah.
All my friends, I seek diversity, because diversity brings dimension to the world, right? If you are in one little small fishing pond, so all the fish look the same, what growth do you have there?
It's a very important thing, because it brings us now to, we are moving forward. And even came from an area where you understood those boxes, and then you leave KwaZulu-Natal. Where does the trip take you?
To Venda.
Another extreme.
So when I finished university, it was 1988, right? Mandela was still not out. My boyfriend was on an MK. He said, get your passport ready. Before he left, I was actually engaged. He gave me his mother's ring before he left as an MK soldier.
Yes.
So I waited for him. And when I finished my university degree, there was an opportunity for me to teach in a diverse school in Toyando. I packed my bags, 2 bags, took the Transnet bus. I went into the wilderness seeking diversity. And I found an independent school called Liva. It's still existing. It was started by lecturers of the Venda University and English-speaking parents. But everybody was admitted there.
Yes.
In fact, we educated some pretty big names in South Africa. Pretty big names.
And when you get there, are you the only Indian in the school?
So my friend told me about the job. So it was her and myself. There were Indians from India. But at the school, I'm trying to think now, I think my friend and I were the only Indian teachers there.
Okay.
Women teachers.
So when you left with your friend?
No, I went alone. She was already there. She taught there a year before me.
Okay.
So when I went there, I fell straight into that.
Yes.
We didn't have uniforms. We had 6 classrooms, 4 military tents, and 2 trees. That was our school.
So you were starting a school?
It was already started. It started in 1984. But by the time I went there, it was slowly expanding.
Okay.
We ended up having matric there as well.
And what's the area that...
in Toyando.
Where in Toyando?
I think it's Block C, behind the Oki Bazaars, behind the mall there.
Okay.
So, and it's still there. I went there a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And what we used to do, funky things with the kids. We used to do, we had something called work with production.
Okay.
Where we got an architect from Shirley Village. There was an NGO up there in Shirley Village in Elam.
Okay.
Came and designed with us, asked for our ideas and designed a classroom that the students built with their blood, sweat, and tears. And that classroom is still there.
The students
built it.
Built the school themselves?
No, the one classroom.
Yeah.
The other classrooms were, but we wanted to show them how a building can be designed and erected from ground up and how they can participate in it.
And you lived in Venda for how long?
For 4 years. And then I moved to Guyana and then to Zanin.
You're globetrottering Limpopo now.
Yes. And I'm a Limpopo girl.
Yeah.
If I'm in South Africa and if I'm not in Gauteng, I'm in Limpopo.
Okay.
I do believe that that is a gem that we have not really discovered yet, and it's beautiful.
Okay. Have you went to those beautiful dams and big water spaces?
Yes. Lake Fundudzi, I went to Sacred everywhere. And you know what? I felt so safe there.
Yeah.
Because people protected us. Because you were different. They didn't reject you. But they didn't reject you. They were like, wow, you chose to come to our community. We are honored to have you. And so we taught some really big names, as I said, in South Africa.
Please drop a name.
I hope he's okay with that. Mukoni Rachitanga.
Mukoni Rachitanga, he went on to become the president.
Yes, all the Rachitangas were in our school.
Okay.
Mboni, who's now, I think, in the development bank.
Okay.
I mean, there's one of my students, Santosh Gaya Prasad, is one of the top lawyers in KZN. I didn't teach him personally, but he attributes a lot of his success to the teachers and just the influence we gave them. You know, and we did archaeology. We did things about Mandela before he was
archaeology in high school.
In high school. We went and we looked at the indigenous knowledge. We went to the artists, into the villages. We went to see how the drums were made. I even ended up going to the Domba dance, which is very secretive.
Yeah, very, very secretive.
Very
dance.
secret. And
Venda. Sorry to cut you. Did you watch Sarafina?
Absolutely. In fact, when I was in Guyana, we did that at the school that I was at there.
So people my age, so I'm 45. So people my age would have watched Sarafina more than 10 times. Because I'm speaking to an educator. I think even with Yizo, it was the same thing. There's always a problem with what is it that you're teaching the kids. So you were like Maralo in Venda at that time. So was it a problem of what were you teaching the kids?
because it was an independent school,
Yeah.
right, the vendor government paid our salaries, but
Okay.
all the other money we raised. So we had that freedom
Okay.
within the curriculum to test these different methods. And you know what? That my first classroom there was a military tent. 16 grade 4s in a military tent with a blackboard rested against 2 chairs. That's how I started my career. But it made me one of the most innovative educators because of that. And because of the diversity. All my educational experiences have been in diverse, culturally diverse contexts. I've taught in very marginalized communities, but also in very rich communities. And so now, after 30-something years, I can safely say I've got an eagle-eye view of what national and global education currently is and what it should be. It's not where we need to be.
A day before, I was interviewing a white guy who's a beneficiary of the Afriforum. And I encouraged him to say, please tell us what are the good things coming from Afriforum, even if it's just for white people.
Yes.
Because I want to encourage South Africans to openly speak about. So if you are Zulu, don't be afraid to say, I love MK, because when the president of MK speaks, he speaks in Zulu, and I love it. So the reason I do that is I want South Africans to enjoy who they are without fearing. So you came from a Hindu background, and it's very difficult for someone who's maybe, let's say, white, may not even understand if someone is speaking Sepedi, Xitsonga or Chivenda. You, having lived in Limpopo, you would know the difference between the languages. So the reason I'm saying so is I don't know who looks Hindu, who looks Muslim, and for greater part, for us in South Africa, because of the way we were raised, every time someone is, if we see someone who is Hindu, who is Indian, we would always assume that the person is Muslim. I don't know why, and it was corrected when we grew up that no, it's actually even not that close. So you grew up in a Hindu setup.
Yes.
What are the differences? What is it that you can teach us about the differences? You do know we use the word likula and makula. And the reason I'm saying it is the podcast is called Politically Incorrect. We got to know it is offensive when Julius Malema had to retract it when he started doing national politics. And I must be honest with you, we didn't know. Because in our languages, we do not know, we do not have a word of saying Mo India. You understand? So if we say an Indian, it's just us who are now woke, who understand I must not say someone Likula. And
because that actually means robber, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think in Chivenda it does mean that.
Okay, so when you were in Limpopo,
they used to call me that.
Yes.
And I used to say, "Aye, winner."
So I could understand when they were saying it, they would even openly say it in your presence without knowing that they were offended.
Without knowing it, yes, because yes.
What kind of education do you need to do? And when you answer that, just take me to your background and the differentiate between Indian people in South Africa, because I want to give you an opportunity to teach South Africans about that.
Okay, so in South Africa we have Muslim people,
yes,
and we have Hindu people. Okay. There's a lot of other different sects, right? But that's, if you're talking about Indians, it's basically the two groups.
Sure.
Right. So Muslim people, women would be more covered, like the burqa, hijab. Yes. The Hindu people came from South India.
Okay.
They were brought here by the British in 1860 in 3 shiploads. My mother's side came in the ship. My father's side, my father's father came much later from India.
Okay.
Okay, and then within the Indian community, you have different languages. I am Tamil speaking. Tamil.
So is Tamil
part of Hinduism? Part of Hindus, right? Okay. Hindi speaking, which is the official language of India. That's the majority. We have the same religion called Hinduism, but the different languages are. So you got Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Gujarati, and you've got like lots of other, Malayalam. There's a lot of other languages in South India. The Muslims, historically, they came from the Persians.
Oh.
So they came from the north, right?
Yeah.
But in India at the moment, there's a mixture. And then in 1948, while we were having apartheid here, India was getting its independence, remember?
So what is Moodley?
Moodley.
Moodley in India.
Moody is Hindu.
Is Hindu.
Is Hindu, yes.
Okay.
I think he might speak Hindi, but the religion is Hindu.
Okay.
So within the Hindu culture, we have the caste system in India. Thank goodness we didn't bring that in the ship.
Okay.
In South Africa, we don't really officially have a caste system, although some people might subversively follow it. And then, of course, as I said, the Muslim people came from the Persian and they were more north.
Okay.
But in 1948, when India got its independence, then Pakistan was a country that was started only for Muslims.
Oh.
So a lot of Muslims from India moved into Pakistan.
Oh.
Pakistan is a Muslim country.
And
purely Muslim
the animosity between the two nations?
I don't know much about the history between the two countries because I've lived in South Africa. I haven't really gone. I don't go to any country that discriminates against women.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think you've just said it. I want Pakistan. So,
but, that's so if there's any kind of discrimination, but I don't want to go to a country where I feel unsafe.
Yes.
So that's my criteria. But so I don't really know the ins and outs of what's happening there now. But in South Africa, let me tell you, I'm very proud to be South African. There is a commonality of South Africanism in all of us. Look at the braaivleis plate, and it'll tell you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think South Africa has molded us into something different. Yeah. I certainly won't fit in if I ever go to India.
Yeah. So someone like you who say, allow me to use the word trailblazer and and a maverick. You would obviously upset a lot of people from your own Indian community, and you will not be accepted by
just my presence.
Yes,
just my presence.
The Afrikaners, where you are actually supposed to be Makoti there, they will not fully accept you. And with us, like we say, I mean, they would call you Lukula without even knowing that they're offending you. It will be difficult to put you in one single pot. So, what are your political thoughts in terms of what is it that can help South Africa? I'm saying so because I want you to speak about these families out. Let's start with the Pahad brothers who were involved in the ANC. Yeah. What do you think about them? What do you think about the contribution? Because I'm deliberately wanting to go back to when Mahatma came to South Africa from UK.
Okay, so let me just back up a little.
Yeah.
I am, as an educationalist and a consultant, I've always taken the non-partisan path.
Yes.
So when the new South Africa dawned, I was a peace monitor.
Yes.
And I was a card-carrying member of the ANC when it was the struggle. I will openly say that. I was part of the whole delegation from Zanin that went and ticked off Mandela's list on that first vote.
Yes.
I was in the forefront. I was like, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
But when the elections came, I became a peace monitor. And then after, when my career started settling in, and what the type of work that I do, I made a promise to myself not to be politically or religiously aligned. Because for me, as an educator, as a facilitator, community facilitator, I can't compromise by taking sides. I have to listen to everybody. So that's where I am at the moment. So I can't really give you tell you one slanted political opinion of myself, because what I do is I look at both sides. I majored in history and psychology at university. I'm able to look at something and analyze it. But what I do is I help people to go through those conflicts and come out on the other side in a much more positive, participatory way.
Okay, and so
that is where I am. So I would love to have different political parties where I discuss. And so when I was in Limpopo, I also went to Seshego. I used to go watch soccer there.
And at the stadium.
at the stadium, at the local soccer pitches, and in fact, there's a child who's probably about 30-something now, named after me in Seshego. I would love to meet that person
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
So you know what? I do break barriers.
Yeah.
I do believe that we have to break barriers and look at each other beyond what we look like. And look at that value and that light in you. And I've always been like that. So therefore, I don't fit in back in my community because I'm way different. I've seen different parts of the world. I see that all people have the same needs. All children want love. So for me to now decide that you need more love than somebody else because of the way you look, no, sorry. That's not me.
The reason I told you about the AfriForum stuff is
Yes.
I believe like there may not be anyone who would speak on behalf of the Pahad brothers, the Gupta brothers, there are a lot of the sheikhs,
yes.
all of those things. And I know it may not be your business,
Yes.
but the reason I'm saying so, I just want to give you an opportunity that I don't want my podcast
Yes.
to be seen as if I'm marginalizing other communities.
Yes.
If there's an opportunity for us as Africans to learn and understand, because we are always going to critique, to learn and understand perspective from the other people. I know you are not a spokesperson of your community, but I just want, while you are here, teach us something that we may not know.
Well, I think, in the end, we all need to follow some kind of, I won't say commandments, but we have to have some kind of guidance, right? And in South Africa, we are so diverse that, we might not, even I might not know everything about my community.
Yes.
But I think what we need to do is follow justice and fairness. And some of our people, my own people, have not been following that. They might look like me, but they don't follow the same, philosophy. So I think we all need to reset. I don't want to go into certain groups like the Guptas and the Sheikhs because I don't really want to get bogged into that. But what I want to say is we all need to reset.
What are your thoughts about Gandhi? Do you think he was a Mahatma?
Look, Gandhi coming from a caste system, he wanted to take care of the Indian interests, sometimes compromising all the other principles. Right. I've learned about Gandhi, a different side of Gandhi that you might not see.
No, I've studied Gandhi for in my 20s.
Yeah. Look,
I even wrote a piece about Gandhi very early. So
so I don't think that he stood for what he thought was right, but I do believe that he was a bit racist.
Okay, and
I know that's quite a thing to say.
No, I think for people who have not studied him, they won't
see that part, right?
And it's because I don't blame them. In fact, I wrote an opinion piece when they named Gandhi Square, and that was way back. I was living in Johannesburg, and people were still perturbed by why would I think that of honey. And the honey Gandhi story is well documented. So I just wanted for you to opine on it, so because there may be people who may not know. Because the reason I'm saying so is
he looked after Indian interests,
of course, and this is
not necessarily anybody else's interest.
That's exactly why I told you that when AfriForum beneficial was here, I wanted them to state it, and I said it in the podcast that one thing I like about them is they took care of their own people. So for us as Africans, we must learn to take care of our own people. And it may not be, you see, prioritizing your people does not mean you hate others. But if you hate others, it's going to be clear to see. So,
but I think South Africa is different. South Africa is very different. Our constitution invites everyone to the table. So it's very different from a homogeneous group, right? We are heterogeneous. So we need to negotiate a new reality. And when we talk about being African, we need to redefine what is African. Does African mean you're born here? In that case, then I'm African. Or are you saying that you are only African if you fulfill a proper profile.
So
Because my ancestry, I've got everybody in my blood. So where do I divide it?
Let me define it for you. So when I say African, I'm saying it in an exclusionary manner. Because when I say I'm an African, I'm saying you can be African and become African. So our channel is politically incorrect. I'm not here to nurse someone's feelings to say, you know, who's that guy? Is it Vikas, the boxer, MMA? Yeah. He says he's an African. I mean, he knows he's not an African. A white person can't be an African. An African is a determination of race. You know, people want to be politically incorrect and walk on eggshells. So no, we mean someone who's lived it. And the reason we say those things is because we want, you know, to embrace each other with. He is a South African, but he's a Caucasian. He is a white person. When the context of us calling ourselves Africans, the context is deliberately to say, I'm what you call black, but I call myself African. So African is the name of my race. Like you an Indian, like Vikas is white. Someone could be an Apache.
You see, I don't see. I beg to differ. I don't see that. I don't see it in that way.
No, you can do it because you want to be politically. We want to be politically correct and say you don't see color. But the honesty is, I'm African and you are not.
Well, look, I think the only way we can prove that is through genetics. Right? To do your genetics. Because
don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying you don't have. So the Americans would talk about a drop of blood. So meaning if your DNA has something, maybe you say, you see, I qualify as an African. Now I'm saying your racial makeup. If you and I were to walk a street, they would say a black male and an Indian woman. Because this is what they see. I'm African and you are not African. And no matter how much we try to be, you know, coochie with each other, to be working.
So what am I then?
You're an Indian person.
But I wasn't born in India.
Of course. Your race is you're an Indian person. That's why I told you that. So if you were going to mark something, that's why now it's become important for demographics to say African when you tick. Because remember, black, you and I and a Chinese person are black.
So black in South Africa, what is black in South Africa?
It's you, it's me, it's a colored and it's a Chinese by definition. That's why I'm African and you are not. Does it make sense? Let's go back to the track.
Well, you see, as I said, I think very differently in that respect. So I can't really converse about it because if you talk about birth, where you were born, as opposed to your culture.
It has nothing to do with, that's why I'm specifically strong on it to say, the context that I'm using it is on race.
So are you Pan-Africanist? Are you a Pan-Africanist where you say like all Indian people must go back to where they come from?
No.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking
don't
because
confuse it.
Is it Africa for Africans?
No, don't confuse it.
Okay, I need to clarify that because
the reason I come out strong on this point is because I see a lot of people because they are afraid because if they say I'm an African, and by the way,
where do Muslims fit in? Would Muslims be Indian?
You see, I'm one of those who raise my hand to say I don't know what is a Jew and I don't know what is a Muslim. The reason I'm saying so is those things are religions. They're not racial profiles. But African is a racial profile. So if yes.
Can I get back to you on that? Because I need to like do a little bit more research.
Yes, I'm being honest.
Because
you see,
because I don't want to commit myself to something that I'm not.
No problem. You and I have a relationship. You can come back here when you have researched.
Yes, for sure.
Yes,
for sure.
The door's always open.
Because as an educationalist, as a person who has worked with so many different children, I don't make any child feel any less in my presence. Because in my eyes, everybody has got something beautiful to offer.
That's
so all
exactly
these
why.
labels, there's all those labels that we want to put people in a box. I broke that box a long time ago.
That's why
So
people
I don't
cower.
wanna put
That's why
people-
people cower from being honest about their races. You see, when I say I'm an African, I stood firm about being African. You are immediately thinking I'm being antagonistic to an extent that you say.
I've always thought myself as African.
Yes, but now I'm telling
So
you,
now-
you are not. I know you regret. It's almost
So that
like
that is a kind of a to be honest, that is a kind of a dash to my.
I'm sorry about
my-
that. I'm sorry. So let me
Yeah.
give another example. You know, there are people of a certain community, right? The rainbow community. So they say it's like a person who looks like me, who talks like me,
Yes.
and who appear. Do I appear as an African man to you?
You appear to me as a very gentle person.
No, I'm talking about my race. What you see an African man or a black man.
You're a human.
But
the only race
come
I
on,
see is the
Ponnie.
human. Look at
So there is a,
we are one species.
yes.
We are one species. Will you call a dog? You got different kinds of dogs, right? We label a dog a Chihuahua, a this, a that. They're all dogs.
Okay, I
We are
agree
all
with you.
human.
What
For
I wanted
me
to
as
say,
a progressive person,
allow me
I want
to
to
finish.
break exactly what you are. What
Please
you
stay,
are.
please stay with me. What I wanted to finish is I look like an African male. But if I say I identify as a white female, this is what I feel I am.
That is your choice.
Exactly.
That is your
so
choice.
When you are saying it's my choice and you understand it. So if I feel that way, it's okay.
Yeah.
So this is what we're living
Yeah.
with now. I'm
Yes.
saying if you think you're an African, I'm saying it's all okay.
Yes.
That's how you define yourself.
Yes.
But I will always
You
see
can-
you as an Indian woman.
That's fine.
Exactly.
But just remember that when you label something, there's also some stereotypes that come with it.
Exactly. Because that's exactly what
Right?
I'm saying to you.
So if I say you're an African man, right? Then there could be some
Underlying
definitions
things.
around what African
Then it
men
means
do
I eat putu.
or don't.
Yes.
And I don't want
Yes.
to go there.
Yes.
Simply because I also eat putu.
No.
Or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I am very progressively minded. I don't want to be bogged down by something that is just physical and outside.
But you see,
There was a guy, there was a program that they did, it's called The Human Race. It was in America. I don't know if it ever came to South Africa. The guy went to New York to a festival and said, people, I want 100 people. Come forward. I want to do research. And then he said, they took the DNA. And then when the time was to reveal the results, they painted a huge world map on a rugby field, like a huge field, right? And then they asked everyone, okay, before I tell you where you come from, you go and you stand where you think you come from. So of course, people who look African went and stood in Africa. People who looked Indian went and they went. Then he revealed the results. There was one guy who looked completely African. He had more Scottish blood than anybody else on that field. So my thing is, how do you look at someone and judge them on what they look like when inside their genes are completely different? I've got black blood in me, I've got white blood in me, I've got Indian blood in me.
yeah, you see, if I was at the
So-
SABC,
Just because I look Indian doesn't
Yeah.
mean I'm Indian.
yeah, if I was at the SABC and there's BCCSA and stuff, and then I would maybe accede to the pressure for you telling me that you're an Indian, you are an African woman, and I say yes.
Yeah.
But because I'm an African man and I know what an African woman is, so there might be an African woman who say, no, but she's not African woman. Yes, she can feel like it, of which we welcome. I welcome you to want to feel like, you see, I identify as an African woman. I have got no problem with that. But you feeling and identifying yourself as such
Yes.
does not take away my eyes to see you as
Yes.
an African woman.
No, for sure. That's your opinion.
Exactly.
That's your view.
Yeah.
This is my view. But I think in South Africa, we are very different.
We are.
We are very different.
We are different. And if we allow ourselves to accept that we are different, then you wouldn't be worried if I call you an Indian woman.
No, but yet again, we have the uniting thing in South Africa is being South African. Right? Doesn't matter where we come from, what we are, but we are South African, and we need to shed some of those and some of those stereotypes, because our children don't have racism. We make them racist.
Do you know where this thing changed? So this thing changed when we were, I think, during apartheid. And please, you're an educator, correct my Afrikaans. It used to read slags blankes, meaning
only whites, whites only.
Whites, yeah,
yes, whites only.
So, and they had a tricameral parliament where the Indians and the colours would sit there, and of course with the whites, in exclusion of us. So it was very specific to say, you are not welcome in building and shaping South Africa at the time. And of course, we successfully dismantled that part, and now we've got an open parliament and we are a constitutional democracy. So what has then happened is there were laws advanced, like, employment equity that benefits you and I. Even a white woman is benefited from employment equity, affirmative action, broad-based black economic empowerment. Those things are very important, and as important as they are, because it allows those policies, they allow people who used to eat the whole loaf by themselves. Those people got worried. What they wanted to do is let the cake be eaten by us. A case in example is AfriForum and DA running to America saying, hey, now they want their land back. This is not fair. Please don't allow them to get their land back. You see, so those things, when it happens, it reminds us that we are not similar to these people because they don't share the same values as us. So when you say our differences, we are reminded of those differences on a daily basis. Because we don't get the same things.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is,
and that's what we must break down.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying.
None of us want to be in that situation of being put into a box and somebody else judges you. The other thing is, I believe the day that we started owning land and started owning people were the day we messed up as a human race. Think about it.
I agree.
Traditionally, indigenously, if there's a word, in indigenous knowledge, nobody owned land. Our ancestors were wise enough to say that we cannot own a piece of land because we will need it at some point, right? But what happened? Colonialism came, it changed the whole philosophy around land. They took the land away and gave the Bible, right? Think of slavery. Would slavery have been possible if our leaders didn't sell us out?
It would have been possible.
How?
When you say our leaders,
I'm talking about how did colonialists come to Africa and freely take people away?
So slavery is much older than colonialism. So slavery is a system where the aristocrats of any society see those who are poor as dispensable labor. And this is more natural than we think, because now we are civilized. We want to conform to fairness but slavery, it's actually more natural than we think. What slavery is I've got means of doing something, but with my resources, do this for me, I can give you this. But to an extent that I realize that even me giving you a place to sleep and eat, I've actually empowered you. That is the basis of slavery, if you think about it.
But
and by the way, let me finish this. I want you to stay with me. The Bible, the Christian Bible, and of course the Torah, they are institutions where slavery was formalized and was actually promoted, because they go further to say who is a good slave and how you must pick a slave, and only the Israelites can be slaves, the other people can be slaves. And it goes further to say, if you want a slave, take those among the Gentiles, not within the Israelites, because the Israelites are God-chosen people. So God-chosen people can't be slaves. And that's not me. That's the Christian Bible. And then it says as well, when you have a slave, this is how you treat a slave. So it's documented in Scripture. So slavery, because I don't want you to confine it to just only the era of Mandela and stuff and Colonel Jan van Riebeeck. No, it's way longer than that.
Yes. The thing is, it does go, right?
Yes.
Discrimination goes way back.
Yes.
But think about why. Why would you want to enslave or, right? It's about power and control.
Of course.
It's all about power and control. Gender-based violence is about power and control. It's not about sex. Right? Discrimination is about the power and control. In the classroom, it's about power and control. I'm saying let's flip it around. Who should have the power and the control? It should come from in here. If you are empowered, if you know who you are, you don't need power and control from outside, right? And the thing is, when you have people being taken up as slaves or as, I still don't know what the point is.
The point is, slavery did not start with colonialism.
No, it came,
The colonists found it, and it was a better tool for them to use. So our leaders did not sell out for slavery. If you're speaking about...
I'm curious about this. Whether it was slavery before or whatever, how did people go and have access to local communities if it wasn't through the leaders?
Oh, of course.
How did they get the slaves if it didn't follow some kind of protocol? Right?
Before someone thinks, I'm not saying there were kings who sold the certain tribes who like there would be kings of certain tribes who are senior tribes who would then pick up from minority tribes and sell them off into ships and stuff. I'm not saying that did not happen, and don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is that whole system did not start with colonialism, because it has always been there through time. And I think even if you go to the Neanderthals, they would possibly have people who were low-ranking in their society, because even though they were not civilized, I suppose they lived amongst each other.
You see, that does not serve us as a human race at all. Look at where we are now. Just look at where we are now.
So what do you reckon is the silver bullet? What would take us as humanity out of this hole that we are in?
First of all, if we want equality, we must have equality for ourselves and the person around us. We want equality, but not for the person on the left and right of us.
Okay, that's number one.
Number two. Number two, if you looked at the COP, I think COP 29 happened last year, right? When those little nations stood up and left, they had a voice. Every single one of us has a voice. Look what's happening in America now politically. There's a huge shift in the world. African countries are standing up now and saying no to you taking our precious metals and then you stopping aid to us. All right. That's where I think the little people are going to have a louder voice from now onwards.
Okay, tell me about George Bush. No, not George Bush. Donald Trump. What do you think about it? What do you feel about Donald Trump?
Look, I don't want to comment personally on somebody, but what I will say is that we must be very careful about the choices we make, right? Because I lived in America. I was there when Obama was inaugurated. I followed American politics very closely because I think it's exciting. Democracy is exciting, but remember, democracy is a philosophy. It hasn't proven to be right or wrong.
Were you disappointed by Obama?
Was I Look, I wasn't disappointed by Obama, no.
You think he's a good man?
I think he's a great man.
You think he led well?
But there were a lot of barriers that were put in front of him, right? A lot of policies were rejected just because it came from him, not because of the substance of the policy.
Do you think he lived up to what I could say Americans and maybe and other Africans all over the world? We were very excited when Obama stood on that podium.
No, absolutely. Do you know the little children? When it was time to dress up as a famous person, the little boys dressed up as Obama. It did so much for the psyche of America, for the self-esteem of Americans. And who put him in power?
White people.
Thank you. White women have the power to change politics in America.
Why don't they vote white women in?
Why don't they vote? Because, my opinion, from what I've seen and what I've heard from other people, they only choose people that follow a certain stereotype. Being married, heterosexual, have a wife, and children. Think about it. Go through every American citizen, American president, and tell me that was not right.
So why didn't
there are
Hillary
pretty good gay leaders in America.
Why didn't Hillary make it?
Why didn't Hillary make it?
Yeah. Why didn't
because that's a different kettle of fish also. You've got the dynasties of America, right? The Clintons keep coming up. The Bushes keep coming up. That's old money that's coming up. We need fresh blood.
So she was at the wrong time.
Wrong time. And America's not ready. I thought America would be ready for a woman president. Twice now. And this last election, I took personally. Because I was supposed to go back to America and live there. Right? And Kamala Harris is from South India. Now you tell me, doesn't matter. That's why I don't want to talk about race. Because look at the substance of the character. You look at Kamala and what her experience is. Take away her Indianness, a womanness, everything. Look at her CV and look at Donald Trump's CV. Take away their names. Would you, just by looking at these two anonymous CVs, who would you have chosen?
The racism would have chosen Make America Great Again because they are majority voters. That's why they voted a white male.
But if you look at the skills, I was talking to a friend yesterday. I'm saying, you know what? Of all the jobs in the world, every job comes with qualifications, experience, accolades, but not a politician. Why? The most important job that you delegate to somebody to run a country does not need qualifications.
That's why I keep giving an opportunity to speak for your people. So, that's why I keep giving. Obama speaks for his people. Afriforum speak for their people.
I speak for people. I speak for people. My people is the human race. You can't convince me anywhere else. Why? Because I've been from the time we were born. Like Trevor Noah says, you were born a crime. So immediately, it doesn't matter what you do in life, you will always be oppressed until you decide that you are not going to be allowed to be oppressed by anybody else. And let me tell you, if you want to call me an Indian woman or a black woman, we face the most discrimination of everybody.
True.
You get it from the white people, you get it from the white woman, you get it from the black man, you get it from the... Hello. You are the bottom of the pile. But let me tell you another thing. Abusers don't realize this. That the more you abuse us, the stronger you're making us. In your mind. So why are women now succeeding more than men? Why are women taking the lead in the home? Why are women taking the lead in the... Because of all that abuse that we've been through, and we are still coming out strong. If you live in my skin, whatever that skin is, and you go to somebody and you discriminate left, right, and center, what are you supposed to do? Shrivel up and die? Not me. Not me.
Ponnie, we're closing. Please just tell the audience what are your near future plans? What is it that you are working on? And any things that's coming on the horizon that you're going to do?
Okay, I do have my sights on a couple of things. I want to actually unite people around education. Okay. Because I think education is a mycelium that connects everything in the world. But it is the last one to transform. Think about it. Education in South Africa and in Africa is a very oppressive thing. We know from the past that education would liberate us. But now that we are now in the new South Africa, education is being used to oppress us even more. And what I'm saying is, we need to do the right thing for our children. 7 generations down the line, like the Native Americans, their philosophy is when you make a plan, you think 7 generations down the line. What I would like to do is, I want to bring people around the table and tell everybody, you have a right around this table. Doesn't matter who you are, what age you are, we all must have a chance to share this beautiful life under the sun. I do it through education, I do it through media. I've just got 2 articles being published this coming week in Durban and all the Caxton media. I'm busy getting ready to launch my podcast. I work with international organizations like Project Biome, Desmond Tutu Center for Leadership, where we look at youth, because I do believe the power lies in the youth. That's the other thing. We know the power of the youth. It turned South Africa around. Now what do? We oppress the youth because we know their power.
Please, let's give me your thoughts about what happened in Phoenix during the 2021 July unrest, and how can the people of Durban fix it?
Start with yourself. Sort out your own discrimination and your own prejudice that live in you before you look outside. I looked inside and I questioned things, right? And what we must do is stop following like blinded sheep leaders who instigate, and stand up and say, this is right, this is wrong. Look, the Africans, the Zulus and the Indians in Durban go back a long time. In fact, the South Indians and Africans have had a relationship for thousands of years. Not many people know this. The word Komatipoort means Indian trader. If you go to India, South India, there's a place called Komati there. Our Hindus and our African brothers and sisters traded a long time ago, dude. We've allowed colonialism to come and taint that, right? We need to reconnect as all races, because in the end, if we don't sort out climate change, it doesn't matter what race we are. We're all gonna die. So let's put aside our prejudices, our stereotypical thinking, and look for common ground. And this is where I am. I am facilitating that common ground through what I'm doing. And why do I do it? For the sake of our children.
Mashiane Political Incorrect, it's been a long one. Thank you very much. That's Ponnie. Tell me what you think about Eitada. Thank you. Ponnie, thank you very much for coming. Thank you.